Creative Labs is a name synonymous with PC audio excellence, especially in the 90s. When they unveiled their Audigy series soundcard, which is this one, the world was left in awe of their exceptional audio quality, at least when it was launched. The anticipation reached again new heights when they introduced its successor, the Audigy 2 series. But what happened next? How did creatives' pursuit of audio perfection take an unexpected turn? Now today we dive into the Audigy series, exploring its strengths, its weaknesses, and comparing it to the latest addition to my collection, the Audigy 2 ZS. Now join me on this journey to discover if the sequel outshines the original. Back in the 90s, the dreaded EMI interference was a constant companion of onboard codecs. This would translate into hissing and background noise when a mechanical hard drive was used, or even when the mouses moved. Bitrates and sampling frequencies were disappointingly low, and worst of all, the audio generation was handled by the CPU rather than a dedicated processor, eating precious CPU calculations. In that era, a dedicated sound card just wasn't a luxury, it was an absolute necessity. The onboard sound, much like today's integrated graphics we find in today's CPUs, was often seen as a fallback option, utilized only when there was no alternative or when quality doesn't matter. Now that we've seen the stage, let's explore the journey from the Audigy to the 2ZS. The Audigy marked a significant step forward from the Live, thanks in large part to its superior DSP, the EMU 10K2, which could handle back then an impressive 64 sound channels, a notable improvement over the Live's limitation of 32 channels. However, a crucial problem arose when Creative claimed that the card was 24 bits. By the way, a small fun fact, with Audigy, Creative wanted to combine the words audio and quality. Audigy, quality, audio, well, okay. The culprit between these critical issues lay with the DMA engine, which remained locked at 16 bits and a fixed sampling frequency of 48 kHz. What this meant in practice was that with every incoming signal, it was initially downgraded to 16 bits 48 kHz, no matter how high the input was. The signal was then processed at this level and then artificially upscaled again to 24 bits. Now this clever maneuver created the illusion of 24 bits fidelity, even though the underlying hardware limitations remained. This caused quite a big media frenzy back then. Enter the Audigy 2, an eagerly anticipated upgrade. It boasted a new and improved DMA engine capable of handling the coveted 24 bits and a higher sampling frequency of 96 kHz. Now this was a significant leap forward, however the problem of the Audigy was secretly still present. The DSP remained unused when operating at these higher rates, because the DMA engine was still locked at 16 bits and 48 kHz. The solution Creative provided was a bypass chip, which would do most of the work. Now let's shift our focus to the Audigy 2 ZS, which is a small evolution from the Audigy 2. The results of this evolution encompasses a modest improvement in the signal-to-noise ratio from 106 dB to 108, the introduction of support of DTS-ES, and the support for 7.1 speaker setup instead of 6.1. Now let's take a look at the components to see where these improvements were made, if any. All three cards are PCI cards, which means that newer motherboards won't support these sound cards since they most likely have PCI Express, and so the cards just won't fit. Let's head over to the components that are used on all of these sound cards. The regular Audigy 2 of course has a big DSP, the CA102 IAT DSP, a chip designed by Creative themselves. On the version that I have, that one was made in 2001, yes, 22 years ago. One chip that isn't present on the older Audigy is the CA15. Now this is the solution that Creative provided. This is the chip that could decode in 24 bits while bypassing the DSP, which was still restricted by the bitrate and the sampling frequencies. Also on the card you can find a CS4382 DA converter. Now this is a nice Cirrus Logic chip that can convert as many as 8 channels in 24 bits and 192 kHz. It can handle both PCM streams and DSD, with the latter being able to handle 128 bits. Also present are a bunch of op-amps. The Japan Radio Company 4556 and its ST Microelectronics 4558. Now the STM was later produced by the Japan Radio Company, so the datasheet shown is by GRC. The 4556 is a dual high current op amp, and that one is used for the headphone output. The 4558 are used for the other channels. The AD converter is from Philips, woohoo, go Philips, or NXP, the 1361, which is a 96 kHz 24 bits stereo audio ADC. To be able to use the AC97 connector for the front panel, there is a Sigmatel Stack 97 2123 chip on there, which is a general purpose 18-bit stereo full duplex audio codec that conforms to the analog component specification of AC97. So keep in mind that when you use the front panel, the audio will be processed just like a codec on your motherboard, so there's no real point in using the sound card at all. And now for the revision of the Audigy 2. The Audigy 2 ZS has the same CA102 as the regular Audigy 2, albeit that this is the ICT version and not the IAT version. It has the same CA51 bypass chip. Also present is the same Cirrus Logic CS4382 DA converter. A bit better is the Sigmatel Stack 97 chip, which is the Stack 9750, which increases the AC97 compliance from the revision 2.1 to 2.2. Also present is the same AD converter from Philips. So hardware wise there just isn't a lot of difference. Okay, some components are moved, a bit more capacitors were used, 42 versus 49, and the addition for an AD link. The ZS also has an additional fuse for overcurrent protection, but that's not really interesting. The biggest change is the support for 7.1 speakers versus the 6.1 of the original, and that the SNR or signal to noise ratio has gone up from 106 to 108 decibels. But does this increase in SNR translate to better audio? Let's see if I can spot the difference during listening sessions. Okay, to be frank, no, I just couldn't spot any difference during the listening sessions. All three cards, the Audigy 2 and the ZS, sounded, well, nearly identical. Nice quality sound that was very creative, not too heavy on the bass, nice middles and sharper higher tones. Okay, the 2 and the 2 ZS had a bit better sound stage, but that was just during the recordings that already have a wide soundstage. Overall, all three were a very good experience that I enjoyed a lot. They can outperform a good deal of more current cards, especially external decks. The overall difference was so small that most of the time I just couldn't hear it. So how do all three cards rank in a more synthetic benchmark? Is the ZS the best version of all three? Is the Audigy 2 an improvement over the Audigy? Well, for that to answer, I cranked up my test bench and I ran several tests with RMark audio analyzer. Okay, let's build up the suspense somewhat. What does RMark audio analyzer have to say about the original Audigy? Well, as it turns out, it's a great card. The frequency response is excellent. Even the stereo crosstalk, something notoriously hard to beat by today's external decks, that gets a good. Overall, the card gets a score of good. Not bad for a card that's more than 20 years old. So let's bring up the Audigy 2. Here you can see the improvement over the Audigy. Overall, it gets a very good, with the stereo crosstalk getting a very good now. The frequency response again is excellent. Overall, this is a pretty impressive result. A lot of modern cards again, internal and external, can only dream of these scores. And what about the ZS? Well, this only gets a good. That means RMark Audio Analyzer doesn't rate the ZS as a better card than the regular Audigy 2. The noise level is best on the ZS. The dynamic range is also better on the ZS. The total harmonic distortion is better on the CS. The intermolar distortion plus noise is better on the CS. The only thing that's slightly worse is stereo crosstalk, but this is just 0.1 decibels. My judgment is that the overall score RMark gave of the ZS is very harsh and, well, not entirely accurate. This CS just is a better card. Now normally I don't show graphs, these are too nerdy and I need to add a lot of explanations to even tell you what they mean. 95% of the viewers couldn't care less, so I just see no need to add them. But this time I wanted to show you the delicate difference between the 2 and the 2ZS. The differences here are so immensely minute. The white line is the 2 and the green is the 2ZS. And on some graphs there are 2 small spikes on the white line, something that the green line doesn't have. But for the rest, the cards perform so much alike. This is just to show you that the cards are so very similar and that the ZS is more of a redesign of the same card than an evolution or an improvement of the two, as Creative claims. Okay, and now for my conclusion. I have a love-hate relationship with Creative cards. I love the audio they produce. I've grown up with them. I mean, I still have the original Sound Blaster in a box right over there. They have become my default position on anything audio. My ears are fine-tuned to Creative cards, but at the same time I hate Creative, and mainly because of the way they operate. Just look at how they deceive the consumer by making you think that you got a 24-bit card, while in fact it's just a 16-bit card. Also, the lack of support they provide. I mean, it's almost as bad as the customer support of AliExpress. They shouldn't call it customer support, the term customer neglect would be more appropriate. I mean, it's cool that projects like Daniel K and the KX project exist, and I support them wholeheartedly. But there shouldn't be a need for any of these projects. It feels like others are cleaning up the mess that Creative made. Okay, technically they didn't make a mess because they made no effort to provide driver support for newer operating systems. And they even sued Daniel K for making modded drivers. These days Creative seem to at least give the impression to have turned around a bit and learned from their mistakes. Nowadays, newer drivers tend to be released more often and improve the quality of the product. Maybe AliExpress should take a heed. Customer support isn't that hard. But as for the Audigy series, I just love these cards. I love the audio they produce. And with the Audigy 2CS you can get the best options that this series has to offer. The increase in quality is minute, but it is better. So if you can get your hands on one of these cards secondhand, go for it. Despite my feelings towards Creative, I love the Audigy series and I can definitely recommend them. And so with this ending, I would like to thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video and see you in the next one. See you then, bye bye!